I lingered in the dim glow, clad only in my delicate night robe, enveloped by the warm amber light and the lingering presence of a man from my past. As he moved nearer, his hand softly rested on the nape of my neck, and he murmured, "If you don't desire this, just let me know." I did not retreat. I had been anticipating that question for many years, and when his lips met mine, every barrier I'd constructed silently crumbled. There is no history. Two individuals stripped of pretense at last, embracing their true selves. I am Margaret, and I have reached the age of 63. For the last 8 years I have resided in a humble cedarwood house, located a few miles from the Pacific's edge, tucked away between the cliffs and coastal paths of Mendocino, California. It may not be a grand place, yet it is my own, serene and adorned with wind chimes and the gentle embrace of morning fog, a refrigerator that emits a persistent hum, and windows that expertly capture the warm glow of the sun just before it dips below the horizon. My 2 children reside on opposite coasts, now grown and thriving in their unique paths, and they reach out frequently enough that I find peace of mind. At the very least, not spoken out loud. I've come to appreciate the tranquility of my early morning teas, the strolls along the wildflower path behind the house, the vintage jazz records I still cherish from my college days, and the vastness of the ocean. The sea is always truthful to you. I once thought that was sufficient. Up until the previous weekend, that Friday was drenched in rain. The phone suddenly rang, displaying an unfamiliar number. Yet the voice that came through was? It wasn't Jack, the dearest companion of my late husband from their university years. We had traded the occasional Christmas card, a birthday message now and then, yet it was merely a series of formal reminders of a shared history we both understood all too well. He embarked on a solitary journey along the stunning Pacific coast, he remarked as they cruised through the landscapes of Northern California. "I found myself thinking of you," he spoke, his tone soft yet unmistakably distinct. When asked if it would be all right for them to stop by, I replied with an immediate yes. Not that I had any expectations. Yet there was a quality in his voice, a resonance I hadn't encountered in ages, that stirred within me the thought that perhaps it was time to cease the charade of being entirely okay. When Jack arrived the following afternoon, the rain had transformed into a gentle drizzle, as if the sky was reluctant to release its hold, yet had come to terms with the notion of yielding. He parked his car just outside the gate, stepped out with a well-worn duffel slung over one shoulder, and smiled as if no time had elapsed. It had been almost 2 decades since I last laid eyes on him. He stood taller than I recalled. Or perhaps I had simply overlooked the extent of the quiet authority he could wield. The silver in his beard shimmered in the gentle light filtering through the trees, giving him the appearance of a man who had mastered the art of bearing both tales and quietude with equal grace. In his eyes there lingered a sense of familiarity, yet there was also an intriguing freshness, an unnamed gravity pulling me in. I expressed my hope that he still had a fondness for Darjeeling, gesturing for him to come in as he flicked the rain off his jacket. "It's only when it's prepared by someone who recalls my preferences," he responded. His words carried a gentle warmth that took me by surprise. We sat by the window, sipping tea as the fog drifted in from the water. The dialogue flowed effortlessly at the outset, revolving around Tom and the memories we each held in distinct corners of our lives. Then gradually into the now. Jack had been divorced for 6 years with no children, living a semi-retired life. He still played the piano, still detested small talk, and still kept that notebook tucked away in his coat pocket, a secret he never shared with anyone. Later, I prepared a comforting dinner of rosemary chicken paired with wild rice. There was something I often overindulged in, as we gathered by the warmth of the fire. The silence enveloping us deepens, yet it remains untroubled. At one moment, he extended his hand across the table to refill my glass, and his fingers lightly grazed against mine. Laid back, yet capable of taking my breath away in an instant. He lingered for a moment and so did I. Then the moment slipped away, and we both averted our gazes, as if neither of us wished to acknowledge that something subtle yet unchangeable had just occurred. That night, I lay in bed, restless as the storm raged outside. Yet it was not the only force preventing me from finding sleep. From downstairs, a gentle melody wafted through the house, a soft and languid rhythm, with delicate percussion and the deep resonance of an upright bass. I glided to the summit of the stairs in my robe, my heart racing slightly more than it ought to. Jack remained awake, seated solitary by the fire, a record spinning gently, a glass of wine cradled in his hand, and a look that conveyed he was far from merely passing through. I remained silent initially, simply standing there, one hand resting on the wooden railing, observing how the firelight danced across the contours of his face. He glanced up as the floor groaned under my weight, yet there was no hint of surprise in his expression upon finding me there. He appeared, if anything, to be quite patient. The hem of my robe brushed against my knees as I descended. The room seemed to radiate warmth, or perhaps it was merely my heightened awareness of each inch of skin beneath the silk, of every heartbeat that stubbornly persisted in its rhythm. I lingered a few feet from him, my bare feet resting on the rug, and for a fleeting moment we were both still. "You always had an excellent ear for music," I remarked gently. He smiled, yet the warmth gradually slipped away as his gaze held on. "Too prolonged, too revealing. You appear." He paused, then continued, "Beautiful even now, particularly now." The words resonated as if they were a longing I had yet to acknowledge within myself. I remained still, my expression unchanged, my gaze steady, simply biding my time. Jack rose gradually, placed his glass on the coffee table, and moved closer to me. "If you don't want this," he murmured, his voice gravelly and subdued, "just say the word." And I did not, I was unable to. Instead, I murmured, "I've been anticipating that question for far longer than you realize." What transpired next lacked the essence of seduction. It was as if gravity had finally taken hold, drawing two souls that had danced around one another for years into the heart of an inescapable truth. His lips brushed against mine as if he were intimately familiar with every facet of my being, yet still yearned to explore them anew. My fingers traced the contours of his neck. His fingers tugged at the knot of my robe. He pushed me softly against the kitchen counter, his breath warm against my collarbone, his lips lingering at my shoulder as if seeking permission once more. In that moment I responded not through speech, but by allowing my body to embrace him completely, at last, without a trace of doubt. If you're still here and feeling the thrill of this tale, why not share some love with a super chat or super sticker? Your support enables us to continue sharing daring and captivating narratives such as this one. I appreciate your presence. That night we took our time. There was no hurried urgency, only profound, intentional actions, the sort that arise from years of discipline, of understanding what it truly means to gain someone's trust. He never requested that I feign youth, nor did I urge him to erase our past selves. We simply ceased the act of pretense. The distant cries of seagulls roused me from slumber, mingling with the subtle aroma of toast that had ventured a touch too far into darkness. The morning light streaming through the curtains felt transformed, a departure from the usual haze, now infused with a golden warmth. For a fleeting moment, I lingered in bed, allowing the recollection of the night to envelop me like a comforting second blanket. My body ached in the most delightful manner, and my lips still buzzed softly from the countless touches of his. The sound of Jack's off-key humming drifted from the kitchen, a familiar echo from his college days. I slipped into a cozy sweater and padded down the hallway barefoot, my heart feeling unexpectedly buoyant. He stood by the stove, a scowl etched on his face as he stared at a pan of burnt toast. As he turned to face me, his expression brightened, not with surprise or doubt, but with a smile that conveyed his wish for my presence to linger. "Breakfast," he announced with a sense of triumph, raising the pan as if it were a prized possession, "is a tad overcooked." I found myself laughing truly. It seems that certain aspects remain constant. He arched an eyebrow, clearly not true. Certain aspects improve as time passes. Later that day, we pruned the unruly lavender bush in the front yard. Jack grappled with the tenacious root, lost his footing, and found himself unceremoniously plopped down on his rear in the muck. I chuckled so intensely that I had to clutch my sides. He glanced upward, feigning offense. I've weathered car crashes and corporate layoffs, yet here I am, bested by a lavender plant. You'll survive, I joked, offering him a hand towel. Hardly. There was an absence of words regarding the significance of last night. Yet in the quiet pauses, in the way he grasped my hand without a glance, I started to grasp that we were not merely revisiting a memory. We were reimagining it, from the serene corners that had remained undisturbed for ages. A gentle and fresh awakening was starting to unfold. That evening we settled onto the porch, enveloped in a shared blanket, as we observed the final pink strands of sunlight fade away into the Pacific. The air was cool, laden with salt, and wrapped in a silence that only coastal evenings can conjure. Silence enveloped us for what felt like an eternity. It seems we both harbored a fear that articulating our thoughts could shatter the delicate connection we had discovered. Eventually, Jack cleared his throat, a deep, contemplative sound that broke the silence. I should have been back on the road by now, he remarked, his hand wrapped softly around mine, yet I find it difficult to pull away just now. I delayed my response. I rested my head on his shoulder, attuned to the gentle cadence of his breath and the far-off roar of the waves, so I replied almost instinctively, "Then don't." He glanced in my direction, and I noticed a flicker in his gaze, something youthful, nearly anxious. Is it too early to suggest that we could turn this into something more than just a weekend affair? I smiled, not due to the surprise of the question, but rather because it lacked any shock value. We had crossed the threshold of the unknown the night before, and now we found ourselves in a realm neither of us believed we would ever revisit. I remained silent. I leaned in, pressed my lips against his gently, lingering in that moment, and remained there. Just sufficient time to convey my agreement. This was not a mere pause. It was not a longing for the past. It marked the dawn of something new. As the stars appeared one by one in the night sky, Jack wrapped the blanket more snugly around us, and we remained there, two souls who had endured great loss, yet still managed to discover one another at the brink of it all. The following morning, following a delightful breakfast of pancakes and 2 steaming cups of robust coffee, I picked up the phone to call my daughter. I hadn't intended to share much, perhaps only that Jack had come by, that we had reconnected over dinner, but the moment she caught wind of his name, her tone became as precise as a radar honing in. "Hold on, Jack. Father's closest companion, Jack." That Jack indeed. There was a moment of uncertainty. "Mama," she said slowly, her suspicion growing, "what makes you sound like someone who's just experienced a long-awaited moment of intimacy?" I almost sputtered my coffee everywhere. A moment of silence lingered. Then her voice transformed into that of a playful daughter who understood me all too well. "Ah, oh my goodness, you did, didn't you?" For the first time in ages, I found myself laughing, truly laughing. "Darling, it has been 8 years. I believe that deserves a medal, not a sermon." She let out a low groan. "All right, that's great for you." A smile spread across my face. I'll embrace that as a gift, and truthfully, that was everything I required. Intimacy, connection, and the subtle exhilaration of being genuinely recognized are timeless. They know no bounds of expiration. There is no obligation to justify your desire to rediscover the essence of life. No matter your age, be it 63 or 25, you are entitled to a narrative that continues to astonish you. If you've accompanied me on this entire journey, if you've smiled, felt a spark of emotion, or perhaps even blushed a bit, I invite you to support the channel with a super chat or super sticker. Every contribution empowers us to continue sharing courageous, heartfelt, and profoundly human narratives like this. Thank you for continuing to believe in second chances.